Welcome to this week's Movie Math, giving you an in-depth analysis of the box office for the weekend of July 27th, as Batman's Rogues Gallery expanded to include the Olympics, the Aurora tragedy, and some level of audience disappointment. Yes, because of all these factors, The Dark Knight Rises fell 60% in its second weekend, which is more than both its predecessor and the Avengers dropped in their second weekends. The worst of the three was probably the London 2012 Olympics. Cruel irony, as Nolan and a large part of his cast and crew hail from the UK. The opening ceremony, orchestrated by fellow Brit filmmaker Danny Boyle, drew the largest U.S. television audience ever for an Olympics held outside the country, and thus The Dark Knight Rises suffered a shocking 77% Friday to Friday drop. It was able to rebound on Saturday and Sunday though, but not by much thanks to the other two factors I mentioned. NRG, the company that all the studios used to track interest in their films, didn't just poll people on what movies they wanted to see last week, but if they go to the movies at all in the wake of the shooting in Colorado. Surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, 20 to 25% answered that they were hesitant to go to the movies after what happened in Aurora. And if you are one of that 20 to 25%, I urge you not to keep it to yourself. Call up your local theater, ask for the manager, and tell him or her why you are not going to the movies. This way theater owners can realize this is a serious issue and do something about it. Now, I know that many of you who are not part of that 20 to 25% might say, don't give in to fear, or it's statistically really unlikely you'll get shot in a movie theater. But no matter the odds, some people just don't think it's worth playing Russian roulette in order to see a movie. And hey, if movie theaters can't even keep people from cutting in line or talking during a movie, it's understandable that after this tragedy some would question their ability to keep us safe. So let's tell them, call your local theater. Finally, I mentioned audience disappointment. I believe that while at first many were viciously defending The Dark Knight Rises, slowly but surely people are admitting to others and themselves it wasn't the best movie ever made. That doesn't mean people are turning on it or didn't still enjoy it, but that does mean that The Dark Knight Rises might not see the same repeat business that propelled The Dark Knight into the billion-dollar club. I saw The Dark Knight 3 times in theaters and The Avengers twice, but I won't see The Dark Knight Rises more than once. How about you? So far at the 10-day mark, The Dark Knight Rises is lagging about 24 million behind The Dark Knight and about 84 million behind The Avengers. Worldwide, the film is up to 537 million. Will overseas audiences heal The Dark Knight Rises box office after being broken stateside by tragedy and apathy? We'll have to wait and see. As for the rest of the box office, to nobody's real surprise, both The Watch and Step Up Revolution debuted to dismal numbers. But it was the worst yet for the Step Up franchise, and Stiller hasn't opened this low since 2004's Envy, and Vaughn since 1998's Psycho remake. As for Jonah Hill, this is a dangerous backslide into the sitter territory, something he'd hoped to leave behind with his Oscar nom in 21 Jump Street. The rest of the box office held relatively steady, with drops in the 20 and 30% range. Only Savages took a real plunge, close to 50%, continuing its bad box office trip. But outside of the box office, there are two recent headlines worth mentioning. First up, Gangster Squad has not only had to remove the theater shooting scene from the film, but because it was so integral to the plot, the film has to undergo reshoots. This not only means moving Gangster Squad's release date to January, but also essentially ruins its Oscar chances, as it can't compete this year and will be old news by the time next year's Oscars roll around. Personally, I say if Mickey Cohen's men really shot up a movie theater, keep it in the film. But if they didn't, then sadly the scene has to go. And having to cut it should serve as a reminder to Hollywood that they shouldn't embellish true stories to make them sexier, but should instead tell these stories as they really happened. The other big headline is actually a potential big headline, as right now the story is just beginning to develop. See, Marvel Comics was getting ready to launch a Thanos limited series in the fall, but inexplicably canceled it at the last minute. This has some wondering if such a move has to do with the rumor that Thanos creator Jim Starlin plans to sue Marvel, claiming he created the character before coming to the company and therefore deserves box office participation. Such a lawsuit, if valid, would likely mean no Thanos in the Avengers 2, and potentially as a result no Guardians of the Galaxy movie either, since the whole point of that film is to introduce Thanos to audiences. Honestly, I think that would be a stroke of luck for Marvel, as I feel going the cosmic route is a bad and potentially franchise-killing idea. This also underlines just how sloppy and unprofessional the comic book industry can be, as it's unfathomable that a major company would use a character that they not only don't have the rights sewn up for, but don't even know they don't. As for this coming weekend, Total Recall is expected to bow with just 18 million, less than Diary of a Wimpy Kid 3. Perhaps 2012 is the apocalypse, or at least the apocalypse of Colin Farrell's career. And that's the weekend box office. I'm Grace Randolph, and we just did some movie math. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll go beyond the trailer for these other top movies.